Peace Barricade.
Hello and welcome on the Peace Barricade. My name is Maria Cernat and I'm an academic based in Bucharest. I started this podcast with a clear intention of becoming a peace monger, a peace propagandist. I want to amplify the message of peace. This was the intention because I'm also the co-coordinator of World Beyond War Romania. And it is with great pleasure that I invite today to our cameras and microphones Wolfgang Lieberknecht. He's a long-standing peace activist. He started an organization called the Peace Factory in Wanfried. This is a place in Germany. He is also involved in the cultural environment and he started a music band called Black and White, where he invites people to join and sing songs spreading the message of peace, understanding, solidarity. Thank you so much for joining, Wolfgang.
Yeah, I proposed to you to make this talk because what is going on in Romania now is a very important development for whole Europe, even maybe for the whole world. Today I heard an analyst, he said he has never experienced in NATO and EU state what is going on now. This attack on democracy, that they tell us, okay, we decide what is democratic and what is not democratic. And if you people, you don't want what we want, then you are against democracy. So it puts everything upside down. And he said, he thinks we go now towards a system which is very similar to those in the former Soviet bloc, where there was a dominating party who more or less decided in the maybe in the office of the office of the Communist Party what is right and what is wrong, and the other parties were only puppets, more or less, infiltrated from them, so that people at the end had no voting. They could only vote for the United Party. And he said he never believed that he will judge about a European and NATO state like this, and said, but these are really surprising experiences we are getting now in Europe from what's going on in Romania. How do you see this judgment?
Well, let me tell you that Romanians experienced a lot of very difficult situations in the past 3 decades. We had a bloody revolution. So in Romania, the transition from the socialist state to a democratic state was violent, and we have huge demonstrations, and unfortunately, people were killed and were beaten, and there were a lot of discussions related to that, because to this day, it is not clear exactly who were the perpetrators of those murders. And this is very telling, of our society, if we were not able to come up with solid evidence related to that bloody events. Then I have to tell you that right after that, we were very close to a civil war, because the miners that are actually residing in the western part of the country, in the district of Hunedoara, where I am from, so a lot of the mines are located there. And they came to Bucharest because people were protesting against the then incumbent president Ion Iliescu, and the miners came to Bucharest and they started beating up citizens, and there were very violent scenes. And unfortunately, these clashes between the miners and the civilian population, they were also civilian, but they were, like a violent mob. And they were very, very tough people, and they came to Bucharest. And these people who were protesting were, of course, students, intellectuals. And unfortunately, the violent clashes between these forces of miners and the protesters in Bucharest and the security forces were started in the 90s, and then somewhere around 97, 98, I think, that they stopped. And then Romania, you know, since we went through a lot, we are like a traumatized person, a traumatized population. And now to see that they annulled the elections, I mean, you know, I resemble, and you have to understand that in Romania, what is going on now is very, very troubling in a sense. I think we are like a frog that is put in increasing boiling water, you know, in a water with increasing temperature. And the result will be a very negative one. But we are somehow, you know, paralyzed. This is the feeling, because life seems to go on as usual, but there is this very huge, you know, resentment, and people are very disappointed. And, you know, from outside, you might ask, oh, how are you experiencing all this? Normal, you know, in a sense that a lot of Romanians, unfortunately, are kind of depressed and are kind of fed up and are kind of beaten and are kind of, you know, we are at the end of the rope because we went through a lot during these past 3 decades. And I would mention for the viewers, if you don't believe me, and if you don't believe, you know, people in Romania that want to be sovereign and want to somehow imitate leaders like Viktor Orban in Hungary and negotiate better for Romanians, okay, if you don't believe me, in terms of the very negative effects that the capitalist transformations had on the Romanian society during these past 3 decades, believe the Cambridge and Harvard economists. There is a study that was conducted on the countries, ex-socialist countries in Eastern Europe, and they showed how mass privatization that was encouraged by the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the European Bank for Development, and the World Bank. These mass privatizations led to huge inequality, corruption, social convulsions, instability, migration, and all sorts of negative effects. To the point where you have a country of 20 million people and 5 million people migrated in Western Europe in search of a better life. So we are the country with the largest migration in peacetime in the world. I think we rank #1 at some point before the war in Ukraine, because unfortunately the economic devastation was terrible. So you have to think of Romania of, you know, a very, in a sense, also very tough population, because we went through a lot. And now finally we had somebody who resembled this type of guru, because he combined messages from New Age, spirituality, this type of almost religious messaging, you know, love, understanding, solidarity, coming together, peace. So you have this type of messaging that related very well with the people, and also this type of right-wing populism. We are somebody, we have to be sovereign because look what kind of great leaders we had. They were fantastic, and Romania is here, the country that defended Germany and England and all the rest from the Ottoman Empire. We were the ones who fought the Turks, and then the Western, you know, countries were able to develop because we were here like a shield. And this is the rhetoric, you know. And apparently you Germans owe something to us because we were here fighting the Ottomans. Had it not been for us, you would have been invaded for the Ottomans and your development would have been impeded by these constant wars with the Ottomans that we fought for you, apparently. This is the narrative, in case you didn't know, and some reparations are going to be, discussed. You should know what's the source. And of course, this is a very self-flattering, history where you change events in a sense that you want to portray your nation in a very positive light and to advance the idea that you are so special, and apparently, since people felt abandoned, since there were losers of the European and NATO integration, and these people, far from seeing the European Union and the migration in the West as a wonderful chance, to develop, a career, it was terrible for them because a lot of the people who were highly trained had to leave their jobs to do menial jobs in the West and get paid very little and be, despised and were the target of racism, unfortunately. And they felt abandoned, they felt disappointed, they felt very bad in a sense about what was going on in their lives, despite the fact that, yes, they were able to send a lot of money to Romania, but this migration phenomenon, you should understand that socially it has a terrible cost. I mean, I don't know if you knew, but unfortunately, suicide rates skyrocketed among children because their parents left them here with some relatives, with grandparents, with aunts, with neighbors even, and their lives were destroyed. They were the ones paying the price for this. And unfortunately, the migration phenomenon was sold to us as a success of the European Union and the common labor market because it apparently allowed people who weren't able to find jobs here to find better jobs in the West. But they were not better jobs. They were better jobs when compared to no jobs in Romania. So they had to do poorly paid menial jobs in the West because they had no other choice here. So it was not better. It was the only option, which is a little bit different, And also, women coming back from doing this very hard work that is exhausting emotionally and physically because they had to take care of elderly persons in Italy, for instance. They even, psychiatric facilities like in Iași have a name for it, the Socola disease, the Socola syndrome. Which characterizes women that are committed to psychiatric institutions when they come back from the West doing such poorly paid and very hard work. So all these people, that also local businessmen who felt like, oh, this is the time to stick it to the multinationals and advance my interests. There were also opportunistic local business owners that saw an opportunity in sovereignty, let's not forget that. But a lot of Romanians felt that it's time for a change. It's time for a change. It's time to have somebody new. And this individual, it's not to my liking. I do not defend him or anything else, but was voted for more than 2 million Romanians, and we don't have data. We don't know for sure, but he started off in pole position. He had a winning chance, that's for sure. So what exactly are you doing? You are protecting democracy from whom? From the people that are going to vote for the wrong guy, for the wrong reasons? What are you doing? And unfortunately, Wolfgang, you know what's the saddest part? I mean, a lot of people discuss Romania and they try to portray it, oh, it was a coup, a dictatorship. It doesn't feel like a dictatorship because we experienced dictatorship. I mean, dictatorship meant that the secret police would come to your door and drag you, you know, for interrogation if you said the wrong thing and you were, you know, reported by one of your neighbors, or it meant very harsh, you know, measures against ordinary citizens. We are not there yet. So you are discussing dictatorship because you lived in a democracy, but since we experienced such a brutal, you know, it's all relative to what you're comparing it with, because if you're comparing it to the Ceausescu regime, you're not there yet. But I told you, we are like a frog, you know, and all these things happen and they are being sold with the help of mainstream media, with the help of a lot of intellectuals and academia as something good, because apparently we escaped somebody as dangerous as Hitler. And we are like a frog. We sit and we watch it. We realize something is wrong. You know, we feel like the temperature is rising of the water is rising. But it is like we are paralyzed, and there is not much we can do. I mean, the Sovereignist Party came with a backup solution for George Simeon, who is the head of the Alliance of the Union of Romanians. But unfortunately, he became, you know, a man of the system, and Romanians perceive him as a man of the system, and also a very, very young politician from the Party of Young People, POT, as it is called. But I don't think they stand a chance, because right now Romanians are so incredibly disappointed that I think we run the risk of having presidential elections with very low turnout, voter turnout, very low. Because people feel like, what is this, Iran? I mean, you have the council of the wise elderly Ayatollah who is going to do a pre-selection of the candidates and are going to do a vetting, you know, of the candidates. And there you are going to choose from the ones that were already chosen by somebody else. What is this? I mean, yeah, this is the situation. And I would like to point out that the saddest thing is the mainstream intellectuals and civic organizations and mainstream media are suggesting it was a wonderful thing what the Central Electoral Bureau did. Wonderful, because apparently, you know, the narrative changed. First, it was wonderful they annulled the elections because it was Russia and this man was going to sell the country to Russia. Then it turned out that it was the national liberals that actually paid Kensington marketing. Of course, Kensington marketing denies it, but the journalists reported that Kensington marketing was involved in promoting Călin Georgescu. And why was that? Because unfortunately, the national liberals felt that the real danger, that was George Simeon, was going to be somehow impeded in his electoral bid if they could take just and squeeze just enough votes by supporting somebody similar to George Simeon, Călin Georgescu. And what do you know? Călin Georgescu rose to fame and he was fantastic and people voted for him. So it was an internal operation, a little bit gone wrong. The secret services still have to come up with very solid evidence for Russian interference. And then they changed it and they said that he was preparing the overthrow of the government because he was in cahoots with one of the Romania's, owners of a secret army that was employing ex-secret service and special forces personnel to fight in Congo. And apparently, along with this guy, he was going to prepare the overthrow of, but what need was there for that? I wonder, since a lot of people already liked him. You want to overthrow the government if you don't have legitimacy and the sympathy of the voters. This is weird, you know. But who knows, you know, since it was a hypothesis launched by the authorities. Let's see with what they come up with. And the third one was quite extraordinary in the sense that a couple of weeks ago, the Romanian authorities arrested a 101 years old person, claiming that he was the head of a very dangerous group plotting to overthrow the government at 101 years old. I mean, above all this, you can't miss the farcical, you know, element in everything that is happening, the theatrical dimension and the farcical element. And this was the peak, you know, when they arrested this guy who, poor individual, doesn't have any teeth left and he's barely speaking and 101 years old. I mean, of course, he was a fascist and, you know, a Holocaust denier, but they didn't arrest them for that. They claimed he was the head of a very dangerous organization, and along with other 5 persons were preparing to overthrow the government. But tell you what, they made it public. It was all over the internet since the summer. They had a site, and they claimed they were about to reinstall Geția and rename Romania as Geția, a name from a ancient tribe living in here. And it gets even weirder because the country was supposed to be ruled by a council of elderly, and then by below the council of elderly, a committee of the popes, a local committee of the popes of old people, and they were supposed to rule Romania. I mean, it has such a surreal character that, let me tell you, Lucian Davidescu made a summary, and it's comedy gold. It's comedy gold. Since in Romania, you know, the far right was tolerated for so long, to come up today after 3 decades after you tolerated the far right and you tolerated all sorts of manifestations. I wrote about it personally, you know, years back, about how dangerous this type of cohabitation and this presence of the far right in the Romanian public discourse is. And now you come up with this guy of 101 years old who is apparently prepared to overthrow the government. I mean, it's something, you know. I mean, I think a lot of comedy movies will be made after this because it's extraordinary, extraordinary. And then when the first time Călin Georgescu wanted to apply, you know, to put the documentation at the electoral bureau, Central Electoral Bureau, he was arrested. He was kept in detention for 6 hours. All sorts of charges were brought before him. And then the second time he applied, he was rejected. Now, I'm telling you, maybe these people are smarter than me. Maybe they have a reason. But apparently, a lot of intellectuals, university professors, theater directors, all the Romanian intelligentsia seems to be applauding, and they are very happy that this happened. Maybe they know something I don't, or maybe they are scared, or what's going on, because this is the saddest part. The saddest part, you have opposition from Georgescu supporters, but the intelligentsia is convinced that the authorities did the right thing. Can you believe it?
Yeah, it's many of these intellectuals really turn to the West. I think they could had progress and for their lives, they got stability, they could come up, and maybe they want to defend it. I don't know if this, you know, what Trump is now discovering, this US aid, that they sponsored a lot of medias and intellectuals in many countries, that they work for their influence. I don't know if this is discussed in Romania, if they have influence and what they are doing in your country, and if this is connected, that those intellectuals are paid or no, if they go against the mainstream of the Western world, that they risk jobs or progress. I don't know how you see it.
This may be, you know, a speculation that it was related to Brussels, and maybe a lot of people were afraid that they might lose their privileges, and since probably the link with I don't know what went through their heads. Maybe they know something I don't. Maybe there was a real danger with this guy, but I find it hard to believe, let me tell you.
Is this now
And
finally decided that he's out, that he can't?
Yes, because unfortunately, and let me tell you that this situation never occurred in Romania in the past 3 decades. Never. I mean, to have a person that is first in the preferences of the voters and for him to be banned and his electoral candidacy to be rejected by the Constitutional Court, this is so, you know, weird. Nothing like this happened before. And there aren't many ways of attacking the decision, unfortunately, and also the motivation of the Central Electoral Bureau. It is my understanding, I am not a specialist, but it is my understanding that they had to reject the candidacy based on technical reasons. For instance, you haven't had enough signatures. The signatures you put there when you made your application were false, or you haven't signed a document, or you haven't uploaded your ID card. So technicalities. But unfortunately, this the Central Electoral Bureau said that he was banned the last time, so they have to uphold the decision. And he contested the decision again to the Constitutional Court, but the Constitutional Court upholded the decision of the Central Electoral Bureau. So not much can be done. Not much can be done.
So legally, he has no chance anymore, and his supporters.
No.
And but I have seen there were big demonstrations. I don't know how big they were.
Yes, there were big demonstrations because before that, after he was arrested, there was a huge rally in Bucharest with his supporters. There were a lot of people there. You might find in the media, and you know how it is. I mean, we have a famous writer, comedy writer, Caragiale, and he writes political satire, and it's one of our political heroes because Romania provides a lot of, you know, material for this type of literature, unfortunately, the political satire. And he says that you have one media outlet saying that were 10,000 people, then you had another media outlet saying that were 200,000 people, then you have to do the average, you know. So let's say that by average there were 80,000 to 100,000 people, maybe. I don't want to be mistaken because I don't want to get into numbers because, as I told you, there are those who say that were very little and there are those who exaggerate. And I think he really stood a chance of being elected, and I would have liked for him to be defeated fairly, because I wouldn't have voted probably for him, because he was a supporter of a type of right wing combined with a type of spirituality, combined with this type of hippie new age stuff that was really weird for me, to say the least. But now I feel in a sense betrayed because I feel he was not defeated using the correct instruments, you know?
Yeah, but there are rumors that NATO and EU played a big role in bringing him down, in convincing those people you have to make the step to take him out, because Romania plays a big role in their strategies to encircle Russia. And if it comes to war, they play a big role in for transport of soldiers, armies,
I
and
don't
so
know
on.
what to believe. I don't know really what to believe. We are here in the speculation, and there are a lot of people that are speculating, of course, since Romania is so obedient that probably the decision came from a center of power outside Romania. Because a lot of time Romanian politicians leave this impression of being, you know, working for somebody else. And of course, we are not secret services here. We are just two people expressing their views. We are not experts. We are not, you know, people that have access to classified information. I wouldn't like that for a second. And when events like this happen, of course you speculate. Of course you speculate. It doesn't mean that this is a conspiracy theory. I think it's a plausible explanation, because there is a difference between conspiracy theory and plausible explanation. Why else would something like this happen in Romania? Why? Why? What is the cause, and who calls the shots after all? And let me tell you another interesting fact. It was Tony Greblă was the head of the Romanian Electoral Authority, and he was dismissed under some corruption charges just weeks before the elections. And I think this is a very important and a key factor, because I also think he would have been the one to oppose such, you know, behavior, because last time the Electoral Bureau, you know, confirmed the validity of the elections, and when pressure was put on the institution, they recounted the votes, and he said he has no authority to say that somebody is not to win the elections if some sort of meddling of another country was done on a social media. So the only the only legal arguments that could have based the decision to annul the elections would have been the one that there were frauds, that there were fake votes, that were ballots with votes inserted, you know, and they were fake. I mean, this type of very specific irregularities could have led to the annulment of elections. And Tony Greblă and the Romanian Electoral Authority said nothing like that happened, and they stood by the letter of the law. But unfortunately, this time around, it went very well. I mean, seconds and very, very shortly after Călin Georgescu, you know, applied, a lot of people came and they registered these requirements for the Electoral Bureau to cancel his candidacy, and it happened very quickly. And it's very interesting that this institution upheld the decision of the Constitutional Court taken in December, but the very same institution validated Călin Georgescu when he first ran. You know, it's so confusing. And when things are so confusing, you have to ask yourselves, maybe I'm the stupid one here. Maybe I don't understand. Maybe everything is perfect. Maybe we escaped somebody who was as dangerous as Hitler. But I find it a bit difficult to believe, to tell you the truth, a bit difficult to believe.
Reality there is really a conflict between EU and NATO, who want to build, I think, the largest base, US base in Europe, there in Romania, and a person who said he doesn't want, and a person who said he does not want to be part of a war, which maybe escalate out of the Ukraine war, and he want, in the interest of Romania, negotiations with Russia.
Yes,
And
yes,
and
he said.
and this is the same, was more or less your neighbor countries, Hungary and Slovakia are saying, and they are all discriminated in Europe. They are all discriminated. We must say, even if they are not able to bring them down. Yeah, but even, there was killing attacks on Fico
Yes,
in
yes, it
Slovakia.
was a
We don't
murder
know
attempt, yes.
who was behind, yeah. But it looks like that there are forces who don't want that people who speak for peace and negotiation with Russia, yeah, to end the war, that they are under a lot of pressure. And I think in this picture, it fits in what's going on in Romania.
Yes, because he was the only candidate that spoke openly about peace in Ukraine. And let me tell you that I don't think he had the guts to tell you to take Romania out of NATO or to be such a fervent, opponent and to say, oh, we want to take the country out, because he has to rely, after all, on a lot of institutions that are pro-EU, and most of the intelligentsia in Romania, as I told you, is pro-EU, and I don't think he would have had that chance. My hypothesis is a bit different. I think that the ruling elites were really scared that he would probably sever the link with the exterior centers of power. But more than that, I think they would have been scared. They were scared that a lot of their secrets would have been revealed, because the Romanian president doesn't have a lot of executive power, but he's the head of the Security Council. And he has access to all sorts of classified information. And from that position, he would have been able to reveal all sorts of secret deals that were probably signed by Iohannis, all sorts of secret, amendments that were included in all sorts of treaties. And I think that was one of the biggest fears. Now, who knows? I'm telling you, I leave the question open. Maybe I don't know. I'm just a person expressing my views here. And he was the only one. And I think, I don't have data, a lot of research has to be made, I think. But it is my hypothesis that it was this discussion about peace that made him so appealing for the public, because no other candidate is so willing to discuss about peace. And he's not discussing about taking Romania out of NATO, because we are in this alliance, and I don't think he would have been, maybe, I don't know, maybe, but I don't think he would have been able to do it. And after all, I think he wanted to be somebody like Orban, staying inside NATO and EU, but from that position, arguing against the power center and being the naughty boy, in the classroom. I think that was his potential trajectory. But what happened in Romania also shows you another thing, Wolfgang. We have, I think, in EU, from all NATO countries, it was a journalist, a Romanian journalist, Lucian Davidescu, who wrote that we have the largest budget for the secret services. I mean, we have a bigger budget for the secret services that you have in Germany. Isn't that something, So we spend on secret services a lot of money, and this is probably why everything is so controlled, and we weren't able to see it until this crisis hit, this Ukraine war started. And now, since we have a crisis, the problem that was underlying, and I also wrote about it, and I felt that it was something out of place with all this investment in the secret services. But now, since there was this crisis, now we see it. Now we see that everything is controlled, and we are now led to choose between the people that were already chosen for us. But I think, had it not been for the crisis in Ukraine, we never would have realized it. And a lot of people still don't realize it. And this is my biggest disappointment, and also my biggest fear. I mean, what on earth is going on with these people? Because I'm telling you, I'm not a fan of this guy, but don't you realize that if this happens to a politician that you don't necessarily sympathize with, the precedent was set, and it is only a question of time before something like this happens to a politician you support, because the door was open. Nobody seems to care. They all will go around saying that we escaped Hitler. Okay. Maybe this is the case, who knows? But I find it a little bit hard to believe. And I find it so worrying that something like this is applauded, by the vast majority. Because let me tell you that even because the sovereign camp started to make lists with Soros people, people who took money from Soros and are selling Romania to the depraved West and are destroying our national fiber, because this is the discourse, and you should understand that this is not something to be very sympathetic to. And even myself, I find myself on these lists, apparently I'm a Sorosist. I don't know why, probably because I'm a feminist. What can I tell you? Maybe they were prepared, to do this type of crazy thing and, to conduct all sorts of this type of political revenge. Who knows?
Yeah,
When
but in Germany, we have a similar movement, AfD, Alternative for Germany, they have, beside the left-wing Sarah Wagenknecht, these are the only parties who really speak for peace with Russia and ending the Ukraine war with negotiations. Yeah.
But how about the Linke?
They are not clear in this point. The Linke is not clear. No? They are not clear against this war and the involvement of NATO. This was the reason that Sarah Wagenknecht left them, because in this point they have a different position, but they are in between. This is not clear, but these nationalists of AfD, these are the strongest voice in Germany for peace. They are much stronger. A fifth of the votes they have behind them. And in Gaza, the same, Israel, they stand on the side of Israel. So this is only here, the Ukraine war. They see clear the US has driven us, Europe, in this war to split Europe, to weaken Russia. It was not in any interest of Europe. So Europe is just a victim, not only Ukraine. Whole Europe, we are a victim. Yeah? They destroyed the very good connections between Russia, the resource-rich Russia and West Europe, which gave us, even especially in Germany, a lot of social progress in the last years. So they see it out of a German perspective. They are not against armament. They even want to follow this 5% of gross product of the economic to put in armament. But they want this armament for Germany or maximum for Europe, not for the US. So this is the point. But they are also from this point for militarism. But again, German militarism or European, more a German militarism, as in our traditions, in our horrible traditions, and not for the USA. This is here the point, and we also, let's say, people from the left, we are not strong really to oppose and bring in a really peace proposal, which is taken serious from many people here in our society. We are, must say, relatively isolated. Even if people get also no more skeptic, that people were told Russia is very weak. We win after some months. It does not affect you. Yeah, we just get Russia down because of the idealistic thing to support Ukraine, who was attacked. And only now, step by step, they see the narrative has nothing to do with reality. That
Yes,
Ukraine
yes.
was not winning, that Ukraine is not very democratic. Yeah, that they have a big repression against people with other ideas. So step by step it comes up, but still, if you go on the street with these positions, yeah, there are people who shouting and so on. And the armament for the masses, also the majority, they get skeptic, but they don't understand. Today, they make very big debts, what is planned now in Europe and in Germany, very big debts. And in future, they will cancel a lot of social benefits, even of pensions and so on. Naturally, it will come. The money is not 2 times there. But many people, it is not clear till now. They get more skeptic, but there is not a big opposition against this budget, these changes in the budget to put more and more money in armies. As they don't see the danger in it for the whole social system. For me, I see the whole social project of Western Europe is in risk now with this armament. And you know, it is clear it will be a competition. If they make more armament, Russia also will do. That means it will bring us in a circle of ruination, our social, our health system, our education system. But not so many people see this clear, and therefore said, we need peace also for ourselves, that our social system is not collapsing, that our personal life is not collapsing. This idea of Gorbachev, which we have to come back to build one house for us Europeans together, one house with peace, with justice, and democracy. We have to develop a stream in Europe again, uniting for a peace with Russia, uniting and for a peaceful Europe and implementation of the Charter of
couldn't agree
Paris.
more. I couldn't agree more. This is why I think our voices are so important. Maybe we are small voices, but I think our voices are very important because we are not politically engaged. We do not support X, Y, Z. We want peace because we understand that we are at a point where the technological advancement makes it so easy to produce such deadly weapons so quickly, and that our whole planet could be destroyed so fast that, you know, like in a blink of an eye. And this is why it is important to have independent voices like ours trying to spread the message of peace, because otherwise, what do? You succumb to this paranoid, you know, suspicions with regards to the big other, and you start investing in things that are producing death instead of producing and maintaining life. And yeah, my biggest disappointment, I told you, is that even important activists and politicians from the left are very happy about what happened, and I feel a bit isolated, and I'm afraid they will call me names if they knew that I don't fully support this. I told you I'm not a fan of Georgescu. This is also, I think I'm a small minority because I'm not a fan of Georgescu, because right now Romania is torn between the pro-Georgescu camp and the anti-Georgescu camp. And I wish there would have been more principled people who would have said, look, this is not our guy, this is not our type of politician. And now, since the war seems to be heading toward an end in Ukraine, I would have had even less, you know, I would have been even less tempted to even think about voting for somebody like that. But if something like this happens to a person that you don't like, you have to be principled, and you have to understand that you open the door, you set the precedent, and then when it comes and hits you, then you will suffer the consequences because you were not there to protect the others from this type of treatment. But it is very hard. And as usual, the Romanian elites, let me tell you, are on a very controversial side of history, let's put it like this. I mean, they were always, supporting right-wing leaders, then supporting this type of abuses or controversial decisions. Let us be more nuanced here. But I don't know why they do it. But unfortunately, the Romanian society is torn right now. And you have very little principled people who are here for peace, for justice, for the rule of law, and to apply the same rule for everybody, even for the ones that you don't necessarily like.
Yeah, the same controversy we have in Germany, because IFD, do you want to forbid them even if people vote for them? Yeah. So this is here the same discussion, but what you described, the social background in the living conditions of people, that they have lost the dream that with Western integration, their life will be stable and more social, like maybe they have seen West Europe, that this is going down. And so more and more people want to change. And I think with this armament now, where more and more money, which we need for social security, will go in armament, that it will bring the anti-democratic and right-wing parties much more up. Even in Europe, I see it. If the so-called Democratic Party go in this direction to put the money more and more in armies, in developing armies, this money will be not there for the needs of the people. And then if there is no alternative stream, the right wing will get the votes. And this risk is now everywhere there in Europe, everywhere, we must say, yeah, it will come up. And this will then go against minorities, against democracies and so on. Therefore, we really need, I think about building a network, Europeans for peace with Russia. Or something like this, so that we come up and say we don't want to be the victim now of the clashes between the big powers or even the European elites, who from themselves they see a chance to come up to get more money when they invest in the war industry, so on. So
yeah. Thank you so much. This is a joint effort, dear viewers. We are going to upload this video on the Peace Factory and also on the Peace Barricade. This is why I spoke more, because unfortunately Romania became very famous for very wrong reasons. And this is why I invited Wolfgang, but he wanted to hear more from me about this very interesting situation in Romania, to put it like this. And dear viewers, if you like what you saw, please spread the message of peace. Please like, share, subscribe, and tell others about us, and tell us what you think in the comments. Thank you so much, Wolfgang, for the very interesting discussion.
Thank you very much that you took your time. It was nice to work with you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Peace. Barricade.